You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, what's going on? I love my own theme music. Doesn't that just make you want to sing Black Like Me? Man, if you are lucky today, you are black, just like me. I'm really excited about having a little special time in the studio. I love having conversations with people about what's going on in their lives and in their world. But today, I want to do something really special for Mother's Day. As I've said on the show a few years ago, we found out that my mother has Alzheimer's. And it's been really tough to wrestle with. And my sister and I just made a decision that we're going to celebrate our memories. We're going to take mom out. We're going to hang out. She loves to flirt. I'll put polls up, surveys up online, and I'll ask, hey, should I stop my mom from flirting? She's hitting on people's husbands, people's sons, accountants who come to the memory center. She's hitting on them. And people are saying, leave your mom alone. That's your mother, not your child. Leave her alone. Let her flirt. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then you come and help me raise that baby when she has one. And so, but what's really enjoyable is that my mom has not lost her sense of humor. And so those of us who are so fortunate to have our moms with us, and particularly those of us who are even more fortunate to have them nearby, we've got to make great memories. And we've got to think about all the good too. Now, my mom is not perfect, and no one's is perfect, but we really have to take what's really good and celebrate it and be appreciative of it. I want to give a little bit of background about my mom, and then I want to read some of her poetry. My mother grew up in Chicago and had a rough time, was really smart, but I don't think the community knew how to really how to wrestle with that. She was a child of the 50s, and she liked Elvis. And so while other folks were listening to the Four Tops and Gladys Knight, and she liked that too, she was, as the old folks would say, was popping her fingers and listening to Elvis and singing about blue suede shoes. And but she didn't fit into school because they didn't know what to do with black intellectual females. But she was good with her hands. And so she would find jobs at factories, or she would call it a key punch operator. I think we would call it data entry now, but a key punch operator. But was always sharp. Married my father. They met when they were teens, married about 5 years before I was born. And things didn't really work out well. She wanted to rescue him. His father was abusive to his mother. His mother left all 8 of her children because she couldn't stand the abusive relationship. And then the sons, most of the sons repeated that same mistake in their lives, and then drank themselves to death, basically, because they lamented the fact that the women they loved had been chased away by their drinking problem and their anger. So my mom moved to Madison. She's going through a divorce, moved to Madison, really came here for vacation, and bumped into one of her childhood friends. My mother loved the lakes. If you've never been to Madison, Wisconsin, you really must come. It's one of the only major cities in the United States, I think, besides Seattle, that's built on an isthmus. And so that means the main strip is between two bodies of water. She loved the isthmus. She loved the university. She loved the grass. It was so green. One of her friends said, why don't you take the entrance exam to the university, which was somewhat absurd because she had only attended 3/4 of her freshman year of high school. Crushed the exam, was admitted to UW-Madison right on the spot in 1970. In order to make things official, she had to go to Milwaukee and take the GED exam just so she could have that to come to. I mean, she had already proven that she could do college level work, and started working on her undergraduate degree. You speed things forward. You know, she had 2 kids who were growing up. She had met my stepfather, married him, started taking care of her ailing father, my grandfather, who was never in her life. It was pretty amazing that she would move him to Madison from Cleveland, and he had never been a father to her. And then on top of all of that, being a new wife, a daughter taking care of a dad, a World War II vet who had a stroke, she was taking 21 credits. Now, I didn't believe my mother when she told me this. But I've since found her transcripts, and my mother was taking 20 and 21 credits. When I graduated from UW-Madison, I had to get permission to take 19 credits. This woman was taking 21 credits and crushing it. So she decided to take a week off of school, and that turned into 10 years. And so when I was admitted to the university about my junior year, I dared my mother to come back to school with me. She took me up on my dare, because you don't dare Miss Verline to do anything without her taking you up on it. Re-enrolled. Made a deal with the dean of students. Mary Rouse is one of my heroes to this day. She was the dean of students when I was on campus, but she helped to take all those Fs. Mom had 21 credits of Fs because she didn't drop, and found a way to make. Somehow they did it. Somehow they made it. They made it go away, or said whatever grade you get in the replacement courses, we will give that to you. They want to help older students coming back home. So my mom enrolled. I had 3 classes with my mother in college. We had the same undergrad advisor. I sat with my mom in 2 Afro-Am classes. The professors loved her because she was their age. We talked about stuff like it was history. She talked about it like it was her childhood. I think the professors favored her. The students loved her because she was a mom figure. And at first I was embarrassed that my mother was going back to college, and the campus loved her. And I also sat with her in Statistics 301. Man, that was a trip. Again, my mother never had high school math because my mother didn't go to high school. And so it was hard for her to really calculate, standard deviations and things like that. So she failed that class miserably. But because of her personality and her strength, Professor Bob Wardrop let my mom retake a midterm on Thanksgiving Day. Now, she was smart. She took him sweet potato pie because Black women can make sweet potato pie. And so she took sweet potato pie in, and on Thanksgiving Day, she retook it. Now, I don't think she passed it, but he gave her a passing grade. And she said, Alex, it was so funny because by this time, Leleda had come to college. So the 3 of us were in school together, my sister, my mom, and I, and we were all in the same department. She said, Alex, when I had questions when he came in, I could smell sweet potato pie on his breath. He was in the back office eating that sweet potato pie. This man came in on Thanksgiving Day. Not only did he let my mom retake an exam, but to do so on Thanksgiving Day. Whenever I talk about creating better systems for access, I speak out of this personal experience where I witnessed people make allowances for folks, and not because they pitied them, but it's because they had the potential. My mom went on to not only get her undergraduate degree, but she went on to get a master's at Wisconsin. She was on the dean's list. She won a full fellowship. So not only was her tuition paid for, my mother was paid to go to school. And she helped me start my nonprofit. She was a family therapist in Nehemiah for the first several years. And I think about Professor Bob Wardrop, who helped my mom retake that exam, because had she not passed statistics, she wouldn't have been able to graduate or go to grad school. And sometimes when we think about how people make allowances, I think we have to give a shout out to people like Professor Wardrop, who I think had the ability to look into the future and thought, we will benefit more, the campus will benefit more making an exception with this woman than just saying, well, if I did it for you, I'd have to do it for everyone. I totally get that, but everyone wasn't a mother sitting in that class going back to school, and everyone didn't have the potential of becoming a family therapist. And so I look back on that, and I just think that I get a lot of my grit, a lot of my excitement about learning from my mom. When she did finish her undergraduate degree, I called the newspapers, and they did a story. It's still hanging in my office. Tyler has seen it. The title is, "It Took Time, but Mama Graduated." She's flanked by Leleda and myself. And it ran front page of the State Journal the Friday, I think, Wednesday or Friday before graduation. But what's funny is Ann Landers was the speaker. She got an honorary doctorate from Wisconsin in 85, summer graduation of 85. And she was the keynote. And but as she was standing up afterwards, all these people kept stopping by my mom, said, congratulations, congratulations. I saw you in the paper. And they were talking to my mom more than Ann Landers. And Ann Landers had this look on her face, and my mom like, what the hell? Who is this? Why is everyone going on? I'm Ann Landers. Why is everyone? Tyler, you don't know who Ann Landers is, do you?
I had no idea.
Wow. Do you know who Ann Landers? Eli, do you know? Okay. It was a advice columnist. It was Dear Abby and Ann Landers. And so people would write letters to them, and they would answer, my, how this world has changed. These people are too young. I got to get some more older people and some blacker people in in the studio. So finally, we got Mom and Ann Landers in a picture together, and people explain, oh, she graduated, she came here, dropped out, finished, blah blah blah. She's on the front page of the newspaper, but I still have a picture of Mom and Ann Landers. But it was just so funny to see people walk right past her and want to congratulate my mom. So I think about those things. I think about her strength. I think about who does that? Who just says, yeah, you know what? I don't want to work for Shep's Ice Cream. I mean, we were living on the East Side. She was making ice cream. She worked for Ohio Medical. She was making incubator equipment. She just thought, I think I want to go to college. I think I want to be a family therapist. I mean, who does that when you're 40? But my mother did. And so I love those things about her and her personality. And so even when we struggle with her in her memory facility, because, if they get on her nerves, she will let them know. She's not shy. It's just a part of her personality that shines through sometimes that reminds me, hey, this is really who Mom is. That strength, that fight, that grit is something that still shines through. But another way, besides Mom's academic exploits, she's a poet. And she would often tell us that she was lonely as a child, so she would write in order to get her thoughts and her feelings out about the world. So what I thought I'd do for this Mother's Day piece that I'm dropping is just to read a little bit of her poetry. And before I do so, I'll say this: Mom was diagnosed probably in 2010, 2011. So we've been wrestling with this for about 8 years, but I took her out for a ride a couple of days ago. My sister took her out for a ride Sunday, and we both compared notes. Like, hey, I went to see Mom. She was doing really well, looking really good. It's about time, for her to, get her hair restyled. We're talking. We both mentioned to each other last night, Mom had her poetry book. And so again, she doesn't know who's president, which may not be a bad thing. Doesn't know what year it is. But it's interesting that she's holding on to this book. So as I was thinking about what I want to do for Mother's Day, I thought this still resonates with her. And by just walking around with it, first of all, the folks who work are just shocked that she wrote a book, but they love it and she reads it to them. But I just thought it's very befitting to just read some of this because I think it's the job of children to celebrate their parents and to commemorate their legacy, because in telling their legacy, we're really rehearsing our own. And so she wrote a book. I compiled her poetry when she was 60. My mother's 78. When she was 60, she loved it. I went to a copy shop, got it, ring binder. I think it cost more to print that than it did to print the book. Nowadays, back in those days, printing was really expensive. She said, "Oh, I want to edit it. Because she's a perfectionist." She held onto those poems for 10 years. So at 70, I just said, "Mom, time's up." I just grabbed found the 4 edits she made, and Laleda and my sister and I created a publishing company, and we got everything laid out, got the ISBN number and everything, got it published, and a local bookstore carried it, and so we're really excited about that. So I want to just read some excerpts, but one of the things she said in her intro, it was her first poem, probably like around 1945, and it's a poem she wrote, I think, like in 3rd grade. And it starts by saying, "As I was walking to school one day, I saw a little bunny along the way. I saw the little bunny go hop, hop, hop. And I cried, 'Little bunny, would you stop, stop, stop?'" And that's about all she could remember from the poem. And she said she went underground with her poetry because she got spanked in public because her teacher asked, "Where did you copy this?" And she said, "Ma'am, I didn't copy it. I wrote it." She said, "You're lying. There's no way you could write this. Where did you copy this?" And because my mother would not change her story, she spanked her right in front of the whole class. And so that association of being smart, of being poetic, and being punished for it sort of went together. So I understand why my mom held on to her poetry for 10 years, because the idea of exposing herself and being known as a person who's gifted with words still had this tinge of pain in it. And so anyway, I still get mad when I think about that, which is why I want to put that excerpt of the poem in here. But one of the things she wrote is, poets are seers. We observe, we process, we respond with our words. Our poetry and prose serve as mirrors, which allow people to take a fresh look at reality. Poets' power and influence come from our ability to challenge and change the perspectives of our readers. We understand that when perspectives change, so do minds, people, and nations. And that's powerful. It's just making us think, well, we got to have more poets. So my mom, because a couple of poems that she wrote, and then I may offer a little commentary. This one is called "Give Me 5." She said, "At the age of 5, I was a dreamer. My dreams belied my age. I knew nothing about disappointment, of hate or pain or rage. By age 15, I had been broken. My dreams had disappeared. Life had happened to me, and I faced the things I've never feared. By 25, yes, I was married, as broken as I was. Life had just carried me along, as it sometimes often does. At 35, my life had changed. I had found the Lord. I'd bought a home, my kids were good, which was his own reward. At 45, I'd hit my stride. My dreams were coming true. I was educated, and my diploma said, from Madison's, Wisconsin's U. At 55, I had to face my own mortality. This hair of mine was turning gray, but yet I was still me. Now at 65, I can look back at the life that I did build. In spite of all the highs and the lows, today I'm so fulfilled. Yeah, I like that. I mean, for so many reasons. I like that piece about how she's reflecting back. I thought it was cool about how she took that in increments of 5. But the cool thing is that it chronicles her life, because without reading that, I would have to do the math in my head and say, okay, when did she go back to school, or when did she buy her first home? But you always, as a kid, I always wonder, hey, is family okay? Is mom okay? So reading in her own words that there were things like her kids growing up and finishing college and buying a home and seeing her kids do well was really important to her. But turning gray was not a bad thing for her, because she knew that there were things that she had wanted to do. And so that was real special to me. As I get older, I realize that I didn't ask my mom enough questions about her perception of the world. So one of the things I want to really encourage folks who are part of the Black Like Me family, ask your mothers, your grandmothers, your grandfathers, ask people questions about their perspectives, because you'll either find out how ahead of the times they were, or how astute they were, or how resilient they were. And this piece is really important. So Mom wrote a lot in this book, Life, Love, and Legacy, about history and how she saw the world. And there's this one piece when she wrote, it's called Remember What History Has Taught Us. And I'm just going to bring a couple of excerpts out. But in this piece, she was talking about our West African roots and how we'd been taken from the motherland. And so, speaking like Africa in his first dance, she says, "Hello, my sons and daughters, across the deep sea waters. Now, don't you know the motherland is home? Your mother won't forget you, and one day God will let you return to me no matter where you roam. Yes, slavery took its toll on our body, mind, and soul, but as a people, we were made to last. That fiber that's inside us was put there to provide us good remnants from a long and arduous past. When the Black man lost his place, Black woman filled the space. Survival of the fittest was the theme. The family thus divided was once again decided, quite ready for another breakup scheme." So I mean, I just thought that, like, my mother, who was growing up in the 60s when Black women were being incentivized to not marry, like, she's calling this stuff out. Like, she referred to that as a breakup scheme. You know, when Black man lost his place, Black woman filled the space. Survival of the fittest was the theme. The family thus divided it was once again decided that they're quite ready for another breakup scheme. And so I'm just thinking, she often taught me that I was just as good as anyone else, just as smart as anyone else. If she thought that I thought I was inferior, the wrath of God and mama would come down on me. But yet, although she was thriving in this predominantly white environment on Madison's campus, and she went to school back in the day where the total minority population in Madison was less than 3%. But yet she's speaking of what happened politically as a breakup scheme of the family. It's very interesting because I didn't know she really saw the world that way, because that's not what she talked about. And so that era of Black individuals knew what time it was, but they still they worked, they were arduous, they were industrious, because they knew that not only their lives, but their children and our collective legacies depended on it. There's another stanza that says, it's addressed to me. It says, and again, this is like in a voice of Africa, "Be strong, my son, you know. I've always pushed you so. Your mind and strength would grow. till you could come and stand toe to toe with any man, friend or foe. The world is hard today, but you will find a way to make these hard times pay if you just do what I say. And this is, as I'm thinking about the strength of our mothers, that even in this poetry, she's making it very clear that for Black mothers, not only are they thinking about what my kids are going to eat tomorrow, not only are they thinking about how can I afford Garanimals, they're also thinking, how do I not let my son lose his soul? How do I not let images in the media destroy him? How do I build him up at home so that he's ready for another day of disenfranchisement? That's an art form. And when you think about some of the reports that we read that came out in the 60s by Daniel Moynihan and others who were portraying Black women as these strong, buxom figures that were chasing scrawny, frail Black men out of the home because she was too strong and too boisterous. They made it seem as if she destroyed the Black family because she was mama and papa. She was husband and wife. She was breadwinner and nurturer. So these images were given out that she was so strong and Black men were so weak that they couldn't cohabitate. And she's talking about these themes that broke up the family, but she still had to think not only about everything that every mother thinks about concerning her son, but how does she send me out compliant enough that I wouldn't be destroyed, that I brought receipts home. I brought things in a bag. I said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. She sent me out into the world with enough common sense to be compliant so that I wouldn't be destroyed, but enough attitude and enough self-confidence to not be consumed by dumbing down and living into systematic thinking. That's an art form. That really is an art form. And I think as we're trying to figure out what we need to do better in our inner cities, I feel like we still are blaming the moms, and we are not bringing these experts, these people that have done this successfully for years. We have not brought them to the table to say, what did you do? What did you learn? Who taught you that level of grit? And reading this, and that was what she thought about me every day, is amazing. Is amazing. And I think young moms can be helped by that. But it was home and not social services that brought that strength to my family. My daughter was born prematurely, and she was 1.5 pounds. And because we really couldn't hold her a lot, my mom chronicled that growth. And so she wrote some things that are really sweet. And we knew that in order for my daughter to come home, she had to hit certain mile markers. And so she could not come home until she was 5 pounds. And so that meant, she had to gain almost 4 pounds. And it took 116 days to do that. And so she wrote one poem that's called Pound for Pound. And it said, 2 whole pounds. I weigh 2 whole pounds. I knew I could do it. And before you could count to it, I'll stand 2 feet above the ground. But one of my favorites when Lexi hit 3, because that was a very critical point. When a preemie hits 3, that's really important. So mom wrote this: 3 at last, 3 at last. Thank God Almighty, I weigh 3 at last. Only 2 more to go, and the pounds won't come slow. And you know what? Then it's time for home. I will go. So we love that. And so Lexi has no idea about being that small. She doesn't remember that anymore. Doesn't remember that. But it was just so cute the way she just said that, free at last, free at last. I know I stressed this before, but the added gift of reading through my mom's poetry is now these are things that she probably can't clearly articulate. But even when she could, I think she was so busy being a mom and a grandmother that I don't think she took time to really process this or the things that are painful for her. But I'm crazy enough to believe that this is what a lot of her colleagues thought. Her fellow Black women who are moms and grandmothers were thinking these same kinds of things. And so again, one of the things I really take pride in is how I feel that my mom was ahead of her time. And I didn't realize how much she thought about being Black and what it meant in the world, because she modeled moving in and out of the world, navigating a white community so well that I didn't think she really had these thoughts. And but as I read some of her words, and I'm going to share a poem that's called Being Black, I realized she was really talking about justified anger 20, 30 years before I was. And so I'll jump through pieces of this where it just talks about her Black consciousness, but how she's thinking about what it means to be black in this world and how people see us. Think about this video that I've been watching by Donald Glover, and he's talking about black consciousness and how the world sees black people, black bodies, the value of it or the lack thereof. And I think my mom was saying this decades ago. So it's called being black. Over 200 years, we've worked this land in one way or another. My great-grandpa, my own grandpa, my father, and his brother. People have come from other countries and have taken their possessive stand because America stands as a freedom land, but for others, but not for some. I mean, I'm just thinking, like in the 70s and 80s, as an older black woman, she's noticing that people who have not been on American soil for 400 years were passing up black people. That's Western Europeans, Eastern Europeans, people coming from other places. But this, I think, was a real commentary for older blacks that they've seen their commitment to this country and have not seen the country's commitment to them. She's talking about people going off into war. This line is kind of interesting, and my mom has this interesting way of rhyming the first two lines, and then the third line rhymes with the sixth. But my mother's sons, her brother one, her nephews, uncles, and cousins went off to fight to protect the rights of others, but not for us'ns. Damn. I mean, again, she's stating here, we're sending our sons off to protect someone's rights, but it's not ours. And her brothers were both military men. Her father was in World War II. Sometimes when we talk, when you have this video, when you see this video like This Is America, or I make commentary on what's happening in the world, people talk to us like we're not invested. They talk to us like we weren't in this land longer than they were. I think it's unfathomable for whites to think that I've been in America longer than they have been, that I have spoken English longer than they have. I love that question. I learned that from one of my mentors. When people are talking down to me and I'm able to say, well, now when did your family begin speaking English around the dinner table? Because my family's been speaking English for 400 years. But she's speaking as the daughter of a vet. So she goes on to say, so my uncle was sent, so off he went to fight an enemy he didn't know. His squadron was hit and he was blown to bits just like any other G.I. Joe. My brothers each dreamt of becoming a man and having the freedom of choice. But how does a boy learn the ways of a man when all the men around them are treated like boys? Man, I think I'm edgy in what I'm saying today. I think I'm trying to call things out. She was calling this out. She was stating what has become a part of the aggregate narrative and anger for black people in America. How do we toil the soil? How do we work the fields? How do we make America a superpower because of free labor? How do we then go to war? How do we help bring down enemies? How do we help grow GNP and then are still treated like boys? And when we refuse to be slaves, and then we have other money generating ventures like mass incarceration, privately held prisons, and things like that. She's talking about how her brothers went away to war and came back and said, back home, he could not find a job. Buying a home was off his list. At 65, he still laments the opportunities he's missed. My only son has been profiled. He's the apple of my eye. My only grandson, typecast too. It makes me want to cry. So you have these. You know what? If I went through all of this, I might be having trouble remembering. That's not it makes you wonder how much good there is to remember. But this narrative of worrying about this piece of American life, in addition to all the things that black mothers have to worry about. And I'm just going to finish up these last 4 stanzas. Well, I don't sing overcoming anymore. That rhetoric is just not my type. The music and rhythm is quite all right, but I just don't buy the hype. But I pledge allegiance to the flag. I sing Star Spangled Banner with pride. But whatever mistakes America makes, I'm right there by her side. I sing my country 'tis of thee, even the part about liberty. But really, y'all, in my lifetime, do you see that including me? But none of that affects how I see myself. My mama raised me real good, saying you'll always have to be yourself, and no matter what neighborhood. So sometimes I rant and sometimes rave, but I bet I stand out in a crowd. And no matter how this world behaves, I am still black. I am still beautiful. I am still proud. That just sums up like the experience. I mean, instead of society and media painting pictures of black women being the cause of everything, I'm not realizing how they have been the glue, and being able to just articulate. This is what artists are saying today. This is what Beyonce is getting in trouble for. This is what Glover's getting in trouble for. This is what Kendrick Lamar is getting in trouble for. How dare you? How dare you speak out against America after all America has done? And man, that is really, really. That's giving me a whole lot to think about. I was going to read some more, but I think those pieces I need to read by myself and process. But I just wanted to use this time to say to all of the mothers who are out there, the moms who have given birth to their children, the moms who have given birth but given their children better options or different options by letting others adopt them, for the aunts who are single mothers, for the women who can never have children but have been great aunts and surrogate mothers and mother figures, to the grandmothers who are acting like mothers as you're nurturing your grandchildren and your children, for all the women who are doing this on their own and don't have enough people telling you, hey, we love you, we appreciate you, we thank you for holding our community, our families, and our kids together. To all of the folks who are mother figures and mother figures in the hearts of so many people of all ethnic backgrounds, we appreciate you. We appreciate your love, your tireless work, all the behind the scenes things that you have done, the examples you have set, even when you thought that they were failures, for showing us your vulnerability and your strength, and for shaping us into the people who we are. May this Mother's Day be way, way, way more than what you had anticipated. And may you look at your work and your legacy and your children, and your family and your homes and your careers and your community and society and realize, Mama, that you've done good. And so please know that you are celebrated and loved today because you are.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at www.alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.